This is the Grief Talk Podcast with Vaughn Solis, helping you heal after loss and life's hardest hits. My guest today is Megan Bloom, the founder of Eternal Dancers. As a lifelong dancer with over 30 years experience in numerous dance genres and a teacher of children and adults for over a decade, Megan uses the magic of dance to foster powerful self-expression and presence in others through free-flowing movement and self-expression. As a dance instructor, Megan offers many resources to inspire people of all backgrounds to embrace personal growth and holistic well-being through creative movement and at their own comfort level. She uses breathwork, visualization, and music for transformational experiences to anyone who loves to dance or simply wants to move more. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, Megan, to this episode. Pop in, say hi to my audience, and then we're going to get into it, talk all about dance and movement and everything associated with what you do.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited to be here and have this conversation. From when I got to start realizing what you were sharing and your previous interviews you've done, I just felt so much compassion and I would say that real authenticity from you, your clarity. And so I was so excited to be able to have this time to have a conversation with you, as well as be able to share that with your listeners.
I'm so happy to have you on the show for several reasons, Megan. And right up front, I'm going to, you and I connected on probably LinkedIn or something. And right away we connected over your dance. And I am not a dancer, folks. And one of the things I found so special about you when we first met, and then since then I've gone to your YouTube and I love your 1 minute. Oh my God, which I want to get you to talk about. So you're such a fun, loving spirit. And I just got fun when I was watching you. Megan shares 1 minute. Are they daily 1 minute dance expressions, or several times a week anyway, right?
Yeah, throughout time, I was like doing 1 minute every day. Now it's a little bit more occasional and mixed in, or I'm pulling kind of themes from the greater dance adventure journeys that I lead. But I have a huge collection that I've established now over time. So, and they're a lot of fun.
Yeah. And so so I was watching them the other day and I was just smiling. I clicked on about 8 of them, and you dance all genres pretty much. And you just go into this and you have your music and you're just like, this is what we're doing. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that because it put a smile on my face. And I'm like, crap, you're a good dancer. I mean, you really are a good dancer. And so you're going to be looking at life from a completely different, way than someone who is not a dancer does. But I think what's really interesting is how, and we're going to get into it right now, that you feel that dance is a tool for self-discovery. And whether or not, and I know you're a teacher of children to adult, and so I'm assuming you could work with someone who's just curious about dance, is not a dancer, but just wants movement in their life. And so that's one thing that really drew me to you. The other thing is I did download your 15-minute one just to get moving, which you could do on a chair or standing. And you're really very thorough when you bring someone who isn't used to movement. And I remember telling you, emailing you when we met that, I've been in bereavement 20 years after losing my daughter to suicide. And it has just done a number on me. And where I like to dance, but let's be clear, I didn't come into the incarnation to be a dancer, but it really made me stiff. And 20 years later, I'm still pretty stiff. And it's very hard to get the body moving when it becomes so rigid in pain and grief and trauma and all this. And I'm speaking probably on behalf of millions of people who get stuck where they just can't really move, because that movement and that freedom of expression is happiness and joy. And that's what I get from you. No matter what's happened in your personal life, and I'm sure you go through stuff too, you're still able, you're born, you came here to do this and share. and I'm almost a little bit, I don't want to say envious of it by any means, but I'm really respectful and actually kind of in awe of it for anybody that can do that and create fun in their life. I would wager, on a near daily basis, except maybe for those days you really need a break from being fun, if that's just your personality. So I want to get into that with that in mind and speaking to my audience, some who may be in bereavement, others who are struggling with other things, others that just want inspiration. I have a wide range of audience, viewers and listeners coming from across the generations. And so dance is for everybody. And so I want you to take it away with speaking a little bit more about dance as a tool for self discovery and, and basically what you think about that. And then we're going to move into how we can incorporate that into our daily life.
Yeah, well, that was an amazing opener. And I feel so honored, I guess, that you feel that pure joy, because I would say that's what dance has always been for me. It's been just going back. I've danced my whole life. It was said I was like dancing before I could walk. And I definitely feel like dance was a part of my almost like purpose in coming into
Mm-hmm.
this life
Mm-hmm.
to have that be a vehicle of expression for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's certainly been like my personal, I would say like sacred gift that I'm able to give myself to find that balance. And I'm probably the reason why I am quite a happy person, I think, is because I get to move and I dance. And that's certainly just from the physical release perspective, the somatic perspective is what kind of helps me, I think, be able to process my life and process all
Yeah.
those things. I definitely haven't had an easy life, but yeah, I do consider myself to be a pretty happy person. And I think dance is intricately interwoven in that. But yeah, I was dancing my whole life, grew up dancing, and then have been a dance instructor of children and adults, like you said. And in that, I taught a lot of ballroom dance, like ballroom, Latin, and swing dance, and had the opportunity to work with a whole range of adults in all different ages
Mm-hmm.
and people who have never danced before. And it's amazing how even though we come into these beautiful vessels of our bodies that can do everything and keep us safe and allow us to be creative, we start to get out of touch with them if we're not actively kind of being intentional with our movement or realizing that our bodies can be a form of expression. And so right away with a lot of my ballroom dance teaching, I realized like, okay, I'm working with people here who have got lost touch with their bodies. And how do we help those connections go back? So how do you help people get out of their head and
Mm-hmm.
almost back into their bodies? Because it takes a lot to figure out how to rotate your body, have your left foot go
Yeah.
here, raise your arm at the same time. There's a lot of connections required. And I feel like that was a huge preparation for what I'm doing now, in really helping more in the embodied movement, conscious dance realm, is that my ballroom dance teaching set me up well because I got to work with so many people who were brand new to dance.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I feel like a big part is like dance is something that humans we've done forever. Like through all of
Mm-hmm.
time, it's been our form of ceremony and celebration and what we do to come together. But in more recent history, it's become something that, okay, those are dancers. I'm not a dancer. That kind of like separation of, oh, I don't know how to dance, or I have two left feet. And what my passion, I feel like, is my purpose now is helping give movement back to people and helping people, like, I guess, have like a permission slip to be like, I can move, I can dance, even though I'm not a dancer. I don't know how to move. I generally feel pretty stiff. I might have these different ailments or such that even prevent me from doing certain things. That doesn't have to stop you from that. And so I founded Eternal Dancers really from the concept of having it be a very self-empowering, self really to give people that ability to say, there's that part of me deep inside that needs to move. And by naming it, by calling it Eternal Dancer, because it's innate, it's in me, and I'm going to work on remembering that, I get to honor it by movement. And movement for the sake of movement versus movement for how it looks or how you think it's supposed to look pretty or graceful or with technique. So I feel like I come into this world having dance be who I am. I have the training that gave me the vocabulary and the technique that it just works out well for me. That being said, I feel like my calling and my passion is to essentially be that spirit that encourages people to get moving and dancing, no matter what their past movement abilities were, or even their like dance goals. It's not about that. It's more for like the healing, empowerment perspective of it. And because dance has a way of giving our bodies that movement that we need to unwind. And that's why now in my work, I really combine breath work and even visualization to
Mm-hmm.
let that movement be even more powerful than you would think it would be just to move your hand this way or move your hand this way. I mean, I think for so many people, what dance gives us is when we turn on music, like what is dance? And I feel like a big part of dance is moving to music.
Right.
Music naturally kind of stimulates us, gets us
Yeah.
excited,
Mm-hmm.
touches our heart,
Mm-hmm.
and that little spark, that inspiration that music does for our movement, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like can turn anybody into someone who says, I'm moving to music now, no matter how it looks. And so I think dance is really powerful in that way because I think dance naturally needs to go with music, more or
Mm-hmm.
less, or have some type of rhythm, or even have your breath. There's a rhythm that dance comes from, and that can really tap into that innate part of us that's really important. So for the like self-empowerment and self-discovery part, I feel like dance transcends borders. It's timeless. It's more about remembering what it is for
Mm-hmm.
ourselves and letting ourselves remember how to be whole again.
Mm-hmm.
When we connect with our bodies, we automatically, it's like you get to be more present in all the space of who you are. And that's my goal of how I help people. Their support going, you got this, and I'm
Yeah.
here, and you're safe, and
Yeah.
let's be creative together.
I was thinking while you were talking, it's so interesting. Like, we don't in North America, we don't come from a culture of community dance. And if anyone who's traveled will understand that many cultures around the world have community dances. It borders sort of along line dancing, but it's community, and you're all doing the same steps at the same time to the same music, and they grow up with it from babyhood. So dance forms part of the culture as a way of connection, communication, celebration, and right.
Yes. And so an example might be if you don't think you're a dancer, but years ago, remember when line dancing? I don't know if they're still doing it, but
They are. There's some line dancing happening.
you know, for the community that sort of the Western feel to it, right?
Yes.
I remember going to, I lived in the diplomatic corps for a while, and we went to this, my husband and I, this big, massive, dinner and dance event, and it was all Scottish dancing.
Yeah.
Didn't know a thing about it, but we all got in there and they showed us what to do, and everyone just celebrated on the same level. So there was none of this feeling of, I'm not a dancer. You don't even think about whether you can dance, your body does it.
Yeah. Because you're
Your
trusting that and you like let
it knows
go.
how to move.
Yeah.
And you're free. You're free before all the other crap in our life takes over and
Yes.
traps us in like stiffness and rigidity for a whole host of emotional and mental reasons. It's got nothing to do with the physical, does it?
No, it usually just ends up landing there, but
Yeah, it's
like
like,
able to process it through.
Right. And so I was thinking of that while you were talking and wishing, geez, I really wish that we had established communities in Canada here. Each culture comes and they preserve their traditions, but they don't necessarily share outside their community. And and so it's really interesting. And then for anyone who's gone to all inclusives, or that dreaded moment where they say, come up, I don't go to them anymore, but come up and dance, and it's, if you're in Mexico or whatever, it's all the Latin style, right? And it's like, no, I'll be humiliated. Anyway, you're speaking to someone who um really wants to dance, okay, and can and I've tried a few, not to the point I'm going to take dance lessons, but I've tried a few Zumba, is it?
that's more a Latin thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's just getting the movement, exercise dance. So talk to us about how you can incorporate dance. So we know the importance of it, and the other thing is, Um, how prevalent do you think the notion of dance is silly in North America?
Unfortunately, lots. Or that I can't do it, like, separation from it. Like, it's
Yeah.
for people who, are certain body size, who are athletic, who have had certain training,
Yeah.
and yeah. So, because I got to work with ballroom dancers, I got to work with that set of people. It was like, "But I want to figure out how I can." And I think that was fun because there is a lot of people who, if they have like a vehicle or a framework that they can go like, I could start to move within that,
Mhm.
then they could start to say, "It's not silly, it's actually really cool," or, "I don't have to look perfect to have a lot of benefit from that."
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, a lot of what I do is creating guided movement journeys
Mhm.
where my goal is, like, to kind of give you that prompt, give you those cues so that you get through that point where you're like in your head, I don't know what to do, or this is looking really silly. And I feel like if we have an intention or kind of a pathway that we're focused on, and that's why a lot of what I do is creating like a visualization setup to be like, imagine you're here, or I give prompts. So, like, a lot of my 1 minuters are about, let's make circular size shapes. So, that could be circles with your hands, circles
Yeah.
with your arms, circles with your whole body to give yourself like a framework about what you can fill in versus just saying, I'm going to turn on music and now move around.
Mm.
That stops up a lot of people because a lot of people are like, okay, I just do my silly dance and they don't know what to do. And so there's that prompting, that support. That's why I really try to create like a safe environment of be like experimenting, be curious, but here are some ideas to get you going because I think it's and actually not just going, but throughout the process because that supports people through that. I'm nervous.
I think the prompts are really, really great. And I'll tell you why. I've done a couple of years ago now, but retreats and that, and you go in and the person, who's leading it, okay, just express, like just do anything, just like what you were saying. And people are like, huh? And then you always get the one or two that are just going crazy and stuff. And then you get the other ones like me that are going, yeah, well, I'm not quite liberal enough and free enough to want to do that. And my body doesn't want to do that.
I know.
So I think
You're not alone.
Thank you. So, I think the prompts are really important. And I'll just say one other thing is many years ago. So let me see. So just let me think how many. About okay, about maybe 45 years ago now. I was working a job and my daughter at the time was no, so it had to be about 42 years ago. So she at the time was a little baby and I was working in this at this job and we went for a dinner and this one older gentleman we were dancing and he whisked me. He was an amazing like ballroom dancer and he whisked me around that floor and I responded following his moves. So I didn't have to know how to do it. And he's the only partner I ever had that did that for me, but I've never forgotten it because the freedom I felt. So you must be so lucky. What I feel about you is you must be so lucky to get to feel that every day, whether you're dancing on your own or with a partner who's gifted, well, you would know anyway with the moves. But I've never forgotten that. And I guess I was around, maybe 25-ish, 26, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And I never forgot the feeling.
Yeah.
But it went away. But the story kind of got sad because then fast forward, I married someone, love him, but thought dance was silly. That's why I asked that question. And so all of that was stopped. No going dancing. All of that was stopped and it was a compromise I made. Um, but really feel that anyone who loves something like music or dance and then compromises, it does leave a bit of, well, you tell us what it leaves. It leaves some emptiness in you. What does it really leave it in us?
Can't even imagine. Like, I think well, my grandma, she was a dancer and
Mm.
absolutely loved dance and adored dance. And, she wanted to go down to Hollywood and do a bunch of dance stuff. That ended up not playing out that way. And so she got married and had kids, and dance wasn't a major part of her life, and I do feel like that contributed sadness and grief, to just having that part of her that didn't get to express itself. Uh, but I think that almost helped make her all the more determined to make sure that I had the opportunity to dance because she was in my life a lot. Um, and she was like, Megan is clearly a dancer. We gotta support this and let that flourish. And I know for myself, my dance is like unwavering, uncompromising. I have like a no matter what attitude, I'm moving. And even when something gets, stiff or something happens or like a little knee thing happens, like I can't be all out expressive wise. I still do some type of movement. I mean, it's amazing how simply giving ourselves permission to like say sway kind of back and forth and let our spine just kind of feel that ease. Or if we rotate our hips, or even if we just almost like stroke our face tenderly, like with care, that type of love that we can give to ourselves, even if it's super simple, like sitting or you're just standing, you're just moving so minimally, is such a powerful gift. And I feel like for myself, it's become like it's self-care. It's like brushing my teeth or, making sure you eat good food. Like it just becomes part of how I take care of myself as well as like how I am really happy and joyful and in alignment, I feel like, with my life calling. I feel like it's really important that we, follow our passion and thank the universe um by letting our gifts that we get given, giving them back in some way. For me, that's definitely dance. And so
Yeah.
not only is it like a life passion, but for me, it's a self-care practice that has had to become non-negotiable. And so what I always encourage people to do, like when they're trying to figure out, well, like, how do I get myself moving, is start small. Like maybe it's just 5 minutes a day that you'll find some music that moves your soul. And I feel like we all have different music at different times in our lives that serves us, or and so it might be a brand new song you want to get. Maybe it's like your favorite song. Maybe it's just some song you used to really like, but that always made you kind of want to move. Go back and find that song and have like a sacred time. Even like I said, if it's just the length of one or two songs, where you let your body move. Nothing dramatic, nothing big, especially if you haven't moved a lot. You got to be really careful with your body and aware, but give yourself permission to start moving, really for your own feeling of it. Not at all for what it looks like. You're not going to be going out on the town later necessarily because of that. You're doing this for yourself. Like you're doing this like you would take care of your personal hygiene. You're doing this to take care of your whole body.
Yeah.
And, and then it's fun, in my opinion, because of like curiosity and wanting to kind of learn and be challenged, to plug into some different, offerings where you can maybe have community, even if it's like one of the things I love to do is by sharing what I'm doing online, people are able to kind of have some guidance and help and ideas, but yet be doing it from the privacy of their own home.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go out right now and go to a dance party or like an ecstatic dance party or a community dance where there's a bunch of other people. I think sometimes it can be helpful to work some of, how do I just feel good in my body out when you're by yourself.
Yeah. No, I think it's, and I want to just put a plug into your website, eternaldancers.com.
Yes. Yeah. eternaldancers.com.
And it's filled with joy. Like you have so many pictures and, you dancing in all types of costumes and color and, dance photos and other things we'll get into. But it's just a joy to scroll through, and that's how I found your minute long things, and they were just a joy to watch. And I'm listening carefully to what you're saying and wondering what I'm willing to do, because it takes nothing to carve out a few minutes, like you said, or a two or three songs. And for those of us, I used to play piano, so I also was in the music, and I stopped playing piano 20 years ago. But and also I didn't come here to play piano. You know what I mean? My mom was a pianist, so one of four children had to become a pianist, if you will, and it ended up sort of me that got to some level of it. But it's also understanding, and I want to just revisit briefly here for those watching who love to dance and want to move. That's how I introduced it. For those who love to dance or just want to move more, Megan is your instructor. It's just to remember we don't have to be perfect. And when you were talking about, just moving your hips and that, it made me think that's why we rock our babies.
And then our pets. Yes.
I don't have a pet, but I regularly see a little pup. And when I pick up that pup, that's the first thing I'm doing is I'm rocking him. And that's the movement.
Exactly. Or there's prayer practices where you're rocking as well, back and forth. And there's a lot, like it's how we kind of almost get out of our heads in many ways and just focus on being is by having some type of motion.
Yeah.
That's why we're always moving. Like, I feel like that's why I call all of us eternal dancers, is that because if we're alive, we're breathing. And in breathing, we've got motion. And our bodies are definitely meant to move. Even if they've gotten really stiff, they're meant to move. And so we get to re-tap into that,
Yeah.
I guess, possibility and like almost what we were meant. I always say it's about remembering what's innate in us. And innate in us is a great range of motion.
Yeah.
And we have capacity to be very expressive and release. And really coming from like the somatic perspective with dealing with trauma and all the hard things that happen in our life and dealing with grief is that there's so much that we can't process with our minds. It's too much to deal with. And it does get stuck in different body parts. And it manifests usually as different ailments and stiffnesses and things that become very physically painful and very uncomfortable. But it's amazing how we can move them out through movement. Like, it's so almost so simple as well as so empowering, because I think there's so much of in the whole medical profession that has gotten where, we need help from other people. But there's a lot of things we can do to help ourselves in whatever addition that we're doing and got to deal with our life. And that's where movement comes in, from the ability to actually move through and work through pretty intense stuff with movement and breath, because our breath is controlling our nervous system, which is controlling how we feel, the hormones and the chemicals that we're releasing. And so our breath and our nervous system and our heart are telling our brain almost how to respond. So if we can get our nervous system feeling much better and our heart feeling happier, then we're going to have a new perspective on life, which will empower us, invigorate us, and help us move through life's challenges that pop up.
I totally agree. For me, when you're talking, I really see it as a release of energy. That if we don't release it, and this work goes back decades to many healers, where energy that's not released in some form. So dance is one way for sure. Massage,
Yes.
It has to be a physical movement of that energy. Otherwise, it absolutely does turn into disease, illness, and other forms of toxicity that you have to do something with the energy. So why not dance, people?
Why not? Yeah, I know. I mean, I think like I heard it explain like tension to be sense or to have like even like a really tight neck or something. That's taking a lot of energy actually from your system. And so if you can actually allow yourself to move through that, get everything unwinding and moving, you'll actually have more energy in the rest of your life, because you won't have to be sending so much of it to those areas in your body that just have to hold tight and stiff.
I was just thinking, it's holding that toxicity, and your attention is always being drawn to where it hurts. And that's so
feels
good.
frustrating and saddening and worry, and then you get angry at it. And instead you can move that through, because then you don't want the frustration that this has happened to get also stuck.
So I'm just a nod to anyone who is bereaved out there, who is having to learn how to free themselves from their bereavement and holding that pain in, which is expressing as rigidity in the body. And I've long known that. One of the things I've been doing for the last couple years is exercising to music I absolutely love.
Yeah.
And even though it's exercising, and I'm not talking major aerobics, I'm just talking leg lifts and things like that, but I'm really in the moment. So dance brings presence as well. Obviously, you would say, Megan. And so it's just, you don't have to go out and knock yourself out and go to the dance floor and dance all night. This is a form of expression. And for me, maybe it can lead a little bit to practicing things that are a little bit more just dance, like a dance expression.
Yes.
I would need to follow cues for sure. So I'm going to check out more on your website, Megan.
I'm going to get another
Go and just see how I do with it as I start to loosen up a little bit, you know. So let's talk about your dance adventure journeys. What are they and your inspiration for them?
That's perfect for what we were just talking about. Yeah, the whole inspiration of my dance adventure journeys is to give people that guided support. So I consider myself less to be a dance instructor, but more of a guide. Like I guide you on your own journey because you're on a own journey of unfolding of what's going to happen. But you don't know you're not sure still often where you're wanting to go or what's going to happen along that way. And so what I create, and it's, I would say, kind of my gift that I get so excited and inspired about my art in many ways, is creating a guided, I call them dance adventure experiences because I take you through like a whole arc, kind of like in a story. You know how all of our stories are built. You know, we kind of have that intro. We have, you know, that you get to be involved in your story. There's a climax, then there's a wind down. And so with my movement adventures, I kind of do the same. So really helping you get centered in your body, which often comes from getting centered in your breath and finding that connection through your heart, grounding down through the earth, as well as connecting up through the heavens, and then starting to let the movement start to come. And so then I will give cues to kind of help you along that way to be like, now you can let your body start to softly sway. Meanwhile, I use music that's also kind of encouraging this dynamic to kind of let yourself start to move, because I feel like music plays a huge role in what we do. And then oftentimes I have a framework. So, like, I've created dance adventure journeys that take you imaginatively to a specific place. Like this past spring, I created a dance adventure journey to go appreciate the cherry blossoms in Japan. So I kind of had everyone close their eyes, you know, kind of imagine you're on this flight, you're like a crane, you've landed here in the park with all these beautiful cherry blossoms everywhere. And we get centered and we breathe into our heart, we get grounded, and then we start to move. And through the process of actually, and this guided adventure is on my YouTube channel. It's all available. Yeah. It's only about 15 minutes long. So a lot happens because I actually take you on a journey through Japan to appreciate cherry blossoms with different kind of movement quality dynamics. So at one, we starts off much more mellow and slower motion, more swaying and moving your body, and it kind of builds and gets a little bit more like maybe you're going to want to jump around a little bit more, maybe you're going to want to skip around, and then it kind of goes mellower again. I have a big reverent point where we get to Mount Fuji, and then there's a whole journey, and then at the end I kind of bring you back into your body. And I also help people, I forgot to mention that, but set an intention before we get started too, like an intention of something that you kind of want to possibly work with in that experience. Yeah. Maybe it's something you want to bring in because you're letting go of something else. Like instead of having an intention of getting, unstressed. Instead, it's more like I want to bring in a sense of peace or a sense of balance into my life. So working with that intention through that journey. And what I found is that it really helps people get through. They're never in that moment where they're like, but what do I do next? Because I keep guiding them through that journey. And there's not like a big gap ever where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Cool. Also, I believe in like our ability to visualize and kind of see in pictures or see in feelings. I know not everyone imagines with pictures. Some people might feel more or have emotions they can kind of feel, or words. But I try to give different cues to support everybody and how they can imagine and interpret, and let that help dictate almost what your movement is. So if suddenly now you're imagining you're now in a little boat going down a little stream, that's going to inspire you to move differently than if I was saying you're on, you're skipping down a orchard or you're on a fast moving train. So I feel like all those cues play a huge impact. And so I've done that. I've done dance travel adventures to different places, as well as I really think it's powerful to help people connect with earth and nature, almost from a more of a all the benefits we experience spending time in nature, of going to the forest, of going to the ocean, from a nature bathing, perspective of just being one with nature.
Yep.
Well, bringing those feelings you feel like into nature into your movement as well, and almost relating our bodies to those natural elements. And so then I might create a dance journey adventure that kind of connects us to earth, whether it's like almost starting from the soil and moving and becoming into the tree and then going back into the river and back out into the ocean. And that journey gives your experience, your mind can take a rest because you're like, I'm just going to follow and kind of listen to what she's saying. And your body intuitively knows. And so I'm kind of trying to give you that encouragement and that safe structure to move within, which I think is kind of unique. And I've always just like been a very imaginative, creative person. I mean, I could get like a new cell phone, and when you're deciding like which ringtones to have your phone be, I would go through the phone and I would just like do different ones, and I would like let that song inspire me in a movement, be like, this one's got this personality and this one could be this story. And I've always thought in like stories and movement. Or I did a lot of volunteer ushering at a beautiful historic theater here where I got to usher for like symphonies and beautiful classical music. And for me, they would just come to life in like motion of stories with movement. And so I kind of naturally, I think and create that way. And I really want to be able to share that with people because I feel like it's a framework that can really help support people's unwinding experiences, especially when you're starting without any vocabulary, without any idea of what to do. And I make it so that I'm not cueing you to go leaping across the room or jumping or doing anything outrageous or physically intense. My goal is to create an experience for everybody's ability, and that can be interpreted into what your body needs to be safe.
Yeah.
So a couple things, I now know why you have to move every day, because you've got to get that expression, everything into the story. The other thing is I think this is amazing what you're doing, these journeys. Now, is all that on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so right now I'm really in the mode of sharing and giving. So like as much as like I'm sharing kind of every month a couple different video episodes that are entirely based on a dance journey adventure, along with supporting people with some different ideas and kind of fundamentals for developing their own movement practice.
Yeah.
And then what I am working towards creating is I have a bigger library of more longer form sessions, which is like what I can do when I work with people one-on-one, is create a guided movement journey that's much longer or weaves very specific and more personal details that they're working on into their journey. Well, I'm also creating right now, like a little library of fuller movement sessions that take on different elements. Because I feel like anything that we're working on in our personal or professional life that's not related to movement, we can support with a movement practice. So if we're working on, kind of in our life, trying to find more balance, figure out how to juggle all these different moving parts, we could work through some of that in a movement session.
Of course we could.
And so anything that could be that we're working on in our life, we can work with in a movement. So I love that part of it and that bridging it. And so yeah, so I do one-on-one coaching where I create longer form sessions, and then I'm creating a library as well as a platform for having community, because I really believe in the power of community to support each other, and that it's so meaningful to connect with kindred people who
Yeah.
are on this idea and feeling excited about figuring out how to bring some movement into their life, and that supportive space is so meaningful. So coming soon, I will be launching a platform. There'll be like a membership platform where I'll have my longer form sessions. There'll be varying lengths to be able to go in deeper, as well as a community space. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it sounds it reminds me a little bit of, after post-COVID, where people oh, we can do yoga exercise on Zoom. So are you going to do it like that, where your community is kind of a membership through video platform, and then you're instructing, and then everybody in their own space is following you doing the same thing, more or
It'll be a
less?
mixture. So, like when you see my YouTube channel, you see that I get really excited about creating these a little bit more in-depth movement journey adventures, which because we're moving through a lot of different dynamics as well as music, they're much more difficult to create like live, like right when I'm working with someone.
Yeah.
So there's something I can create when I'm not working with someone, like in my own experience, and then share this adventure. I also can lead a live experience. It's not usually quite as in depth with a whole range of complexities. So on my platform, there's going to be a library set that has all the different dance adventures that are a little bit more curated and crafted with some more different pieces involved that incorporate the movement, the breath work, visualization. I include like affirmations and stuff mixed into it that you're getting to kind of internalize an affirmation, not just for your head, but for your whole being because you're moving while doing those affirmations. And then I'll also do some live events where together, all at the one specific time, we'll be able to dance and move together. So a mixture of both is what I'm working towards.
Well, you know what? I'm not in that world, but it sounds really progressive and unique. And you're probably one of the few offering it. It can feel really lonely to be a pioneer. And you're the one cutting the path in the forest. And this kind of reminds me of it, because my work is very similar, right? I combine metaphysics with grief recovery, and I don't think there's recovery. I shouldn't say that. Just metaphysics and bereavement, and I'm an angel, healer. I worked 10 years in that as an angel channel, and so I thought that's my experience. Yours is the dance, but you're still cutting down the trees. Well, sorry, trees. No, we're not. We're
No,
just
we're not.
parting the
No,
beautiful trees to create a
just winding our
path
path
through the forest. Exactly. And so I think it's amazing. And I did take a really quick look at your YouTube. I will admit, I wanted to talk to you, and I'm glad I did.
yeah. Now you'll really understand.
Look for.
on on the platform, because there's some stuff there, like I would absolutely allow myself to try and experience your dance adventure journeys,
Yeah.
because I love visualization. I mean, I love that.
Visual cues too. So like in my dance journey adventures,
Yeah.
I'm dancing, interpreting my expression of that moment. So you can see me on the screen moving as well.
Yeah.
But then I also bring in a lot of footage of different things. So if we're in nature, I might on the screen, you'll also be seeing, soil, maybe plants growing. I would say I'm a film artist too. So
Yeah.
trees, I've got the stream, or these dance adventures to other places like Japan or Ireland or Stonehenge for the summer solstice. I bring in footage of these places.
Yeah.
So
When I do my coaching episodes, I have a dedicated coaching stream for largely millennials and a little younger. And I do the same thing. I narrate, but I create a film for them,
yes,
because there are people that are more impacted by the message when they can see an image.
I think it's really powerful.
I know, and then sometimes I'm like, you gotta stop it. But there's a reason for it. It's because I can't memorize everything I'm saying, so I have a script, and then but I love creating. That's creation.
Yeah. Doesn't it feel so good for your heart and like your whole being just feels fulfilled?
I get excited when I know I'm going to be creating something.
Yes.
But I didn't come to the world to be a painter. My mom was a multi-artist, painter, musician, gardener, cook, and a little bit of writing. And so when you come into the shadow of somebody who's so artistic, I didn't really kind of look at my own artistry, and I would say the major reason I'm in, my artistry channel would be writing. I came here to write,
That's
essentially.
art. Yeah.
Of course it's art, but we tend to think art is something you visually create, but it's not. There are many art
Just like we tend to
forms.
think dance is something that's supposed to look a certain way
Yeah.
when it doesn't have to.
Right.
It kind of
Love
the
that.
same thing happens to it.
That's important that you said that, That's important. Anyway, I absolutely love dance. I'm checking out your YouTube channel, gonna subscribe, and I'm gonna actually not force myself, but I'm going to allow myself and invite myself to explore and be curious about the music you pick, the stories you tell,
They're very intentional.
guidance that you invite others to follow to allow their bodies to express in a way that their body can and really wants to respond to. Do you think our bodies respond to our mental and emotional, but more emotional sort of, I don't want to say commands, but thoughts? And like, so because if we're telling our body, you're saying, I'm just giving this as an example, move like a tree or bring yourself up from the ground. Well, somehow is our body responding to our emotions of what we're feeling when you say that and the music?
There's multiple things happen. I definitely think like we have an idea probably already in our mind about what that movement might look like. If we were supposed to sway like a tree, we might already have like a almost like a preconceived thought of what that looks like. And so
Mhm.
I think yes, that comes into it. I always encourage like let's open up what that means so that we're not stuck with just it's kind of like if you were ever asked to draw an apple, like most people will draw like a classic little graphic apple that we kind of see represented like in almost a flat art versus actually drawing something that looks more like a real apple. And so I encourage us with our movement too to not think that, moving like a cat always looks like this or moving like a tree always looks like this. But yet where else do we work with than these like things around us that are concrete that we visually see or that we have feelings about? And so I feel like they're like little keys to kind of get us started on movement, even though hopefully that's just the bouncing off place. And really what we'll do is we'll start to trust our body to let's see what happens. And that's why everyone's interpretation is going to be different. And that's why I really try to convey when I'm starting any of my adventures is like, you're going to see me on the screen doing my version today. Your movement's going to look completely different. You're going to do you, you're going to be original. And that's, yeah. And then going back to like what I do, yeah, I definitely feel like I blend like a whole bunch of the science of kind of understanding like what's actually going on in our bodies with spiritual dynamic too about just a very inclusive spiritual dynamic, as well as it just what has felt so good to me as someone who's like been a very, very curious learner as well as a curious experiencer of things and of life, and someone who has I do have a lot of I exercise my imagination, I guess. Yeah, and so if I can encourage others to be curious, I feel like then we open ourselves up to having more different possibilities happen than if we think it's just supposed to be a certain way. Then it kind of keeps us it doesn't open the gate to as many possibilities occurring.
Yeah, one of the things that I sometimes get frustrated with, but I also stay very intentional and inspirational to others, is to have them be curious about themselves, for goodness sake. And so, because the way we respond, when you were talking about the apple and someone drawing an apple or painting or whatever, and I thought, well, isn't that interesting? And what would you draw, Vaughn? And of course, my first reaction would apple. But then I thought, well, what about if you dissected that and took a minute and thought, and then maybe you would just draw a quarter of a slice of an apple.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
something.
But you could do the same thing with your movement.
Exactly. And so just because you and I are here talking about your dancing, I was thinking the word for me is the creativity. And I know you use that self-expression and creativity. It's just allowing ourselves to tap into what I believe everyone has a creative self. Everyone. And so many people lock it away or never find it. And that is our right brain, and our right brain is really what allows us to be emotional, compassionate, and loving creatures.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to, more of us need, and I'm talking in general terms, need to discover that no matter how we express the creative part of us, that is the part of us that I think would give us an amazing humanity.
Absolutely. And
right?
that's so powerful, yes, that you realize that because like you had just shared, like a little bit of the difficulty of being in your mother's shadow when she was so creatively diverse. But yet you realize and embrace that just because you don't have some of the same practiced artistic abilities as she did doesn't make you not able to be creative.
Exactly.
Because you have been creative. You've adventured into your own individual creativity. And absolutely, that's like, it's the juice of life.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is for people who, if maybe you are in a family, uh, or raised in a family, or in your current family, and there's one artist.
Art,
Or dancer.
Yeah, well, I combine that all. I consider you an artist, all of it. But from a creative, and you go, well, no, I'm more of a left brain thinker, and I'm more of a this, or just, whatever. But given the chance, as I said, it's within all of us, and I actually would go a step further and say it produces a lot of frustration for people because they don't have an outlet for the creativity they haven't discovered.
Exactly. That's why I call my platform Eternal Dancers, because it's tapping into that innate part, that part of us that is forever, that's who we are, that eternal nature of who we are.
So I personally think you might be a bit ahead of the game. And the fact that you're doing this work, I would almost say pioneering it. Do you think you're pioneering it?
Think the blend of like truly blending from more of like a creative movement dance improvisation side to somatic more therapeutic practices mixed with some of the liberating more conscious dance realm. All three of those are a little bit different from each other, and sometimes there's not a lot of crossover. Like people who enjoy more of the creative movement dance improvisation would call it that, and they wouldn't really call it embodied movement, and vice versa. And I definitely, for me, they're all so wonderful and glorious and have so many gifts to offer that I've kind of melded them together. And for me, that's really works well. And I feel like for everyone I've worked with, that fusion is so helpful because there's so many healing and helpful, like more supportive of our whole being that comes from the somatics. The embodied dance is really where we get to free ourselves up and be creative, just kind of unwind. But yet those creative movement and dance improvisation prompts give us that framework to actually get as far to have those other two things happen.
And that's where you're different, is the prompts and the storytelling. And we kind of got that where we're going compass, and okay, instead of just it being, we'll do whatever. And then most people, well, I won't say most people, I'm like, no, not for me. It's too much. It was too much. I don't know where I'm going.
Yes.
So I love that about your work. Megan, we are going to talk a little bit, as we agreed. You are a tiny house dweller.
I do. I have a traveling tiny house on wheels. So yeah, it's a 30-foot tiny house on wheels. And I live in slow travel full time with my mom. My mom and I are best friends. And we decided to go on this together. We're coming around on 5 years now, actually. And at first it was like, how could we ever go tiny? I mean, it's tiny compared to even having a small house. But the freedom that has opened up and the being able to see places that we'd always dreamt of kind of getting to go visit is now made so much easier by getting to go travel and actually make that place home. So that part's been really liberating. And I would say I absolutely adore a life, of getting to kind of be at home in different places, even though there is compromises. The biggest thing, and actually something that has made me who I am now, is the tiny house. When we first got into our tiny house on wheels, it was like I felt like everything had shrunken down all around me. I mean, literally, we had a smaller house. And with your things and your kitchen and different things, that all got worked out if you're smart and savvy with how you build, tiny house, places for everything. But literally, my biggest movement space was a 5-foot by 5-foot space. So like less than 2 meters. And so very small space. Now a little bit wider, like a little over 2 meters or 7 feet from side to side, in a certain spot. But I felt like at first I couldn't move. I was like, okay, I can do stretching and I can try to just keep that exercising going, but I didn't feel like I could dance.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, well, I'll find spaces on the road to be able to move around. But then they're always in, public. We were still kind of coming out of COVID. There was challenges. Now, I do love dancing outside in nature. So I was doing some nature dancing, but I felt like I couldn't dance in my home. And that started to really wear on me. Okay. And I would say it's hard to believe, but there was a time where actually like dance I almost couldn't say it without feeling like I had lost something or I'd given that up because of our tiny house. And it was really like it was really difficult. I was definitely like excited and so excited and grateful about how everything was kind of coming together, but the dance part felt like it was missing. And then it just, I would say, as the support of my mom, my best friend, it was like, but you're a dancer. Like, you can figure this out. And I would say there was something, that part of me, because I know that I'm an eternal dancer, that said, I got to figure this out and I got to get creative. And I did. I started like figuring out how I could move within such a small space
Yeah.
and still feel like I could be expressive and improvisational in the moment, and yet not like whack my arms or feet into cupboards or stairs or refrigerator and stuff like that. And what has come is I feel like sometimes like my house is getting bigger and bigger, even though it's not physically, because I can do so much in it. And what's fun is like for anyone who checks out the Eternal Dancers YouTube channel,
Yeah.
most of my videos, if they're taking place indoors and they're not outside in nature, they are in my tiny house.
Because it looks like a loft.
That's like the main floor, and we have glass sliding doors that are really fun and allow for kind of expansion of air. And actually when by the time this podcast airs, I will have shared an episode that goes more in depth of my tiny house and I actually show you this is my space. You'll get to see all around it. So check that out. But yeah, it's the main floor. So I have like a 5 foot by 5 foot area that's totally open. I can move I have to move a couple things. I have to move this little stairs and the shoe bench if I want to have that space. And I do that for all my main teachings and my different recordings and such.
Right.
And then I also have a galley kitchen. And the galley kitchen's just over 2 feet wide, really. But I have found I could do so much movement in that. And in many ways, I've made parts of the house, like the physical, counters and stuff, almost be like a dance partner in that. Like instead of them feeling like I have to be careful, I'm almost like nervous to get too close to these different things, or I'm frustrated that they're there. Instead, I've been like, I got to work with you. I got to work with you, inanimate objects, to be something safe, create you being a safe partner in my environment.
Yeah.
And that's been so empowering because I feel like that really opened my personal experience up to realizing that how much more even movement can be in my everyday life. Because if I can even dance in this very, very small space and have it be liberating and incredible, rejuvenating, a spiritual experience, then that means I can dance anywhere. And I would say, too, that's made me more stronger at helping other people because lots of people have very small spaces.
Yes.
And honestly, you can still move around, even if it's a very small space.
Yeah. And that's why I brought it up. That and we're going to end because we're at the top of the hour here, but we're going to end with also so I just want to say this. We're going to end with you just talking about any other lessons you've learned from tiny house living, because we have to get rid of our baggage the more we scale down, downsize. And I got it down to 903 square feet for 2 people.
Yeah.
But I have been absolutely so fascinated with tiny house living for about 3 years now. And because it represents a certain type of freedom that you're living. And I think I emailed this to you, and you're living, and it doesn't trap you in anything, but it takes a special kind of person to, number one, jump into that type of living. It's not for everybody.
No, it's not.
And I'm not at a stage in my life where I would do well, moving around, but it's still the same idea for anybody out there watching this. Fascinating. And your episode's going to be airing last week of August. And we are going to put a link to your YouTube channel in the notes for this episode, Megan, but also they can access it from eternaldancers.com, your website. So just if you could leave us with thinking about downsizing. So 2 things, you dancing in a 5x5 space. I certainly can dance in my living room, and other people can find a 5x5 space or a 2x2 space or sit in a chair, because you also do movement for people who are wanting to be a little bit more mobile in terms of moving, but sitting in a chair. So you do work with that, which I'm very impressed by. So yeah, just as we hit this top of the hour, what would you like to leave? I mean, this has been jam-packed with information, but I think the major messages have been shared here, and we've touched just about everything at I think even deeper than a surface level, just by getting to the point of what all of this stuff is. But what would you like to leave the audience with, and also if we missed anything that you wanted to talk about, to share that as well with us now?
I think my key is that whatever happens to us, like physically or things that we're taking on. And so for me, it was like taking on a tiny house, which required doing something very new, learning how to do things, definitely being brave, being able to kind of deal with different things that pop up and all the roadside dynamics.
Yeah.
That for me was like physically what was happening. But what I needed to deal with more on an internal scape was the same thing. And how I could process that was through ultimately doing movement. So, how do as people, and hopefully we're all wanting to kind of grow and keep learning and becoming more and more connected with our whole selves. And so whatever we're working on in our life, whether it's in our businesses or whether it's in our family or relationships or personal, we can weave that into some movement practices or meditation or visualization time, and I kind of combine all that together to, I think, support what we have to deal with out in the rest of the world. It's almost like whatever you're working on out there, you can kind of bring in to your own space and own, even if it's just for that 5 or 10 minutes per day, and almost let yourself, by being in the moment, maybe setting that intention for what you're working on out in the rest of your life. You can use your movement as almost a therapeutic healing practice to kind of give yourself back that oneness that honestly helps you go back out. Whatever it is that you have to take care of and figure out, you feel more centered doing, how you're going to handle it. Maybe you'll suddenly have an inspired idea that will be what you were waiting for. Maybe you'll feel just a little bit more creative. Maybe you'll feel more empowered. You'll feel a little bit more like you matter and that you're ready to go show up. And our movement practices have the power to kind of connect all that we're working towards in our physical lives, our spiritual lives, or mental lives. It's almost a way for us to kind of wrap that all up, understand it, and show up for ourselves and those we care about. So use movement as a self-care and a healing practice, because it is like unlimited what can come from that, which requires being curious. You got to be curious and open to possibilities, because you never know. And sometimes you might move and hey, that felt good, but I don't feel anything, like I don't feel transformed. That's okay. Do it again tomorrow, and maybe tomorrow you'll feel transformed. If not, all of it collectively is giving yourself that time and that presence. So you're worth it to give yourself that time to move, to just unwind. And I like to say, call yourself an eternal dancer, because you have that mover inside of you that wants to move and express and be creative. And by naming it, you say, you're worthy of that and you're special. And I'm going to give you some time to unwind. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to be present for that part of me that needs to move. And I think that's a gift that we can give ourselves that has like super life-changing, impact.
One thing that came to me, the one thing I'm going to take away from this is, well, a lot of things I'm going to take away, but when you were talking, it was like it's giving, the movement is giving people who are going to dare to go on this journey or be excited to go on this adventure journey, but giving themselves permission to just simply feel it all. And because I would imagine certain movement, certain music can really bring up some raw pain and trauma and things like that. But as you face it, you release it.
Yes.
And what better way to release it but as an eternal dancer, folks?
Absolutely. So yes, I love reaching out and like connecting with people too. So if you comment or send me a message, I always respond. So say hello. Yeah, I love to connect people and help kind of, I just extend that feeling of love and safety that we can offer each other.
Alrighty. Well, I'm going to subscribe to the YouTube, check it out, and as I said, be an eternal dancer. So thank you so much, Megan. This has been just really inspiring, actually.
And
Yeah, just brought a smile to my face, and I'm just very, very happy and honored that you came to be a guest on my podcast. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me.